Welcome to the show that has it all. This is the Betfred Super League.
What a game!
Champions, challengers, newcomers, leagues faithful. Hold on tight. This is the Betfred Super League 2024. There's nothing like league.
Yeah. No! Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped my ear off. What do you think?
It's Eddie and Stevo, the podcast time again. Half an hour or so of the best rugby league chat around. Here with the blessing, as always, of the game sponsors, Betfred. Now then, we've had an extra match this week. On Tuesday, the champions Wigan took on the Lee Leopards in yet another battle of the borough. Wigan, though, winning by 28 points to 6, which means that we have had yet another change of leadership at the top of the Betfred Super League table. It was Wigan's game in hand. It's been there all season since they took part in the World Club Challenge, and they won easily, Stevo. Lee didn't turn up in the first half, did they?
No, very poor defence, far too many errors, missed tackles all over the place, and quite frankly, I think a lot of people would have turned the TV off because they were looking as though it was going to be somewhere 50 or 60 points. Full credit to Lee. Obviously, the halftime sort of discussion with the coach say, can we play any worse than what they've done in the first 40 minutes? They were awful.
Yeah, and they trailed by 22 points to 0. They did fight back a little bit, but the fact of the matter is they've not won at Wigan since 1983. And they both played on Thursday, looked a little bit leggy, and they've got a course back up this weekend. So now it's Wigan, Hull Kingston Rovers, Warrington, Salford, St Helens and Catalan in the top 6 in that order. Leeds and Lee are leading the chasing pack. Lee have lost a little bit of ground this week now, having lost at Wigan, but it is developing into quite a race, isn't it? And at the weekend, 2 results stood out. Let's talk about them. Hull Kingston Rovers, they went top for the first time in their history in Super League. They beat Warrington at Warrington on Friday. Mikey Lewis, Stevo, we've been banging the drum about him all season. Fantastic. He had a great game.
Outstanding. And he's had a very, very good season. The one thing about it is that you'd like to think that the Rovers are just a one-man team. They're not. They work hard for each other. When Lewis is on top form, and he hasn't been in bad form, has he, all throughout the year, and it's not surprising, we've mentioned it a couple of times on this podcast, that the West Tigers, I spoke, he's a good friend of mine, is the acting CEO at the West Tigers, Shane Richardson, and he tells me that he's the best player that is now playing in Super League. Not that he's the best halfback, he's the best player. And I just said to him, I said, would you like to buy him? And he said, you tell me how much they want. He reckons that this guy will be outstanding playing down under.
Well, he's outstanding playing in Super League, and I'd sooner watch him up here, Stevo, if I'm honest, each week, because I think he's a breath of fresh air. He gets on top of people. He upsets the crowds. You know, it's fantastic. He's entertainment. He's box office, is Mikey Lewis.
Yeah, of course he is. And he plays like an Aussie. Look, to make it in this hard game of rugby league, you've got to be different. You've got to be confident. You've got to be, brash.
Well, Mikey Lewis is born and bred in the UK. Last title for Hull Kingston Rovers, Stevo, 1985. Now then, they are the surprise package in the top 6. Is this their year, or dare I say it, Is it Warrington's year? Their last title, 1955.
How many times, Eduardo, have you said that?
Just a few.
Look, a lot of people would have looked at last week's results and they would have said, "Uh-oh, are Warrington going to do it?" What was it when that lad, that lovely Yorkshire lad, went over to Lancashire to Warrington to be the coach? I think it was 8 or 9 wins on the trot, and all of a sudden they went backwards. I hope, and I'm sure that won't happen. I'm sure that will not happen. It was one of those situations whereby they just tried everything and it didn't work. I'm not taking anything away from the fact that they finished up winners and that Warrington finished up well and truly beaten.
They were well and truly beaten. You're talking about Darryl Powell last year, of course, when they went 8 wins in a row and then it all fell to pieces. This win, though, for Hull Kingston Rovers came at the end of the week that saw Sam Burgess, another great Yorkshireman, of course, signing on for another year. And in our interview last week, he was very philosophical. He said many challenges lie ahead. Well, I tell you what, this proved it, didn't it? Rovers in their faces from minute one. Minute one.
Was it a coincidence that they got the coach to sign an extension of one year on top of what he's got now? Look, he's a great coach and he will get them back on track. Don't worry about that. So as long as you, Eddie, you're a Warrington fan, and all you Warrington fans out there, do not panic.
Well, George Williams had one of his quietest games in weeks. He had no room to breathe. Hull Kingston Rovers were fantastic throughout, led from the 5th minute, never looked like losing, wasn't a weak link anywhere. We talk about Sam Burgess. We've chatted about Darryl Powell. What a job Willie Peters has done for them.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, just outstanding. It's, to my way of thinking, that I think he should be certainly put down the avenue, maybe not the main street, but certainly put down an avenue towards eventually coaching the national side. Because what he's done with those young players is outstanding.
He's done a fantastic job. He really has.
Eddie is the man that, to my way of thinking, has got modern ideas in the game of rugby league. He understands how to bring youngsters through. He gives them the opportunity. And in the future, I hope that he will be offered to coach the national team. Is that good in my eyes?
Are Hull Kingston Rovers, Stevo, the biggest surprise of the season so far? Because people talk about Salford and the fact that they are knocking on the door. But, you know, what a fantastic year the Rovers are having.
Well, they've got a good coach and they've got some good players. We've already mentioned the fact that, look, you know, when Mikey Lewis, when he clicks, everybody else clicks around him. And, you know, you can go back when you look at players like Alex Murphy, Roger Millward. When these superstars, when they hit the top form, all the other players go with them. And that's what occurred last weekend.
Well, the other outstanding result from last weekend was London's home win against Catalan Dragons. Catalan now fighting for the playoffs with Leeds and Lee. I mean, Lee can't be ruled out, even though they've lost in midweek. 4 wins prior to this defeat at Wigan. A crucial part of the season's coming up for everybody, Steve. But what about London? I mean, fantastic win against the Dragons, this.
Yeah, it certainly was, and fully deserved. I thought they compacted very, very quickly. They got themselves into a good defensive position. That's been their problem, is that their defensive line sometimes just doesn't get there in time. So that brings about missed tackles. They know they don't have a great squad. A couple of injuries, and they're in a mess. It's as simple as that. And talking of a mess, did you hear the interview with David Hughes?
I did. He spoke during the win. He said they were defensively magnificent. Campagnola's back. He said they lost some key players at the start of the year, a small squad. They lose 2, 3 or 4 of the squad and they struggle. And then he was asked about next year. And his response to that was, well, you better ask IMG what's going on there.
Well, it's not on his own, is he? You and I have been banging on about it. I get stopped in the street sometimes and they'd say, oh, what's wrong with IMG? And I said, well, why don't you ring and ask them? Because everyone else, including myself and people who love rugby league, the fans, what is happening? Do you know more than I do, Eddie? Do you know more than what's happening? Because I've been told certain rumours here, there and everywhere that the man in charge at IMG evidently has had to go back to Australia.
Oh, really?
That's the rumour that's going around. So the man that's supposed to be helping out and saying what is our future is no longer there looking after our future. Now, they've got to have a meeting because, look, the fans are getting frustrated. You and I have been frustrated for years, but the thing is, what do we get? Publicly, what are we getting out of IMG? If they're running the campaign to improve our game, they should be sending out bulletins. They should be sending out stuff to the press, to the media, to the radio, to the television. Are they doing that? If they're not doing that, then they're not doing a good job.
Well, the rumour, again, it's a rumour. The rumour is they're being paid close to £500,000 a year to do whatever they are doing. David Hughes said that hopefully things might change a bit. He says they're up in the air at the moment. He hasn't given up hope of London being in Super League next year. He hopes they can retract and get away from the ruling, which he says is bizarre. It was based on the last 3 years. London were in the Championship, but they've been involved, he says, in Super League 20 out of 27 years. So he's asking, how can they come up with the ratings that they have? And it's a good question. It is a good question.
Well, according to the few press releases that came out when they first got involved with the Rugby Football League and Super League, was the fact that they were claiming that Super League didn't have to pay them anything for the first 2 years. And yet, already it's come out that they've had to pay them thousands of pounds. Now, where have these rumours come from? What's happening? We get these rumours that come out. Why can't they just come out and say, this is what we're being paid. This is what so-and-so. You know, the fans would love to. I would love to. Everyone that is involved with rugby league would like to know what on earth is happening.
Well, of course we would. And the other thing that came out in the last week or so is that there are redundancies going to be made at Super League or the Rugby Football League. Redundancies means, I would think, that the game is in trouble financially. So why are they paying nearly £500,000 to an outside consultancy then?
Well, maybe we should ask all the clubs who represented and who made the vote, who made the decision to do that. And we're just people hanging back. We're in the media. We'd like to know things. You ring people up and who's in charge? And they say, we'll get back to you or whatever. It's so confusing. I mean, I can remember at the very start, and everybody was up and saying, oh, this is great, wonderful, blah, blah, blah. I can remember talking to a representative from IMG, and he told me, he said, there are areas that we definitely need to have a rugby league team. And one of those areas just happened to be London. Yeah. And now they've virtually cut them off at the legs.
The problem is, Stevo, that there was only 1,900 at London for their win last week against the Catalan Dragons. OK, hopefully more will turn up this week. I say that, and then I also look and see, well, Salford, they got 4,500 for their home win against Leeds. You know, Salford, like London, they deserve better support. But in London's case, if you're kicked out of the league before a ball is kicked, how can you possibly hope to attract any enthusiasm for what's in the future?
Well, would you, Eddie, if you supported the London Broncos and before a ball was kicked, you were virtually told you're not going to stay in Super League, would you go to that point and saying, well, I was going to get a season ticket for my entire family, but because there's no chance of ever being in Super League, because they want to go and see the top teams, St Helens, blah, 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 Hulkingston Rovers, etc. But, well, there's no point in going. There's no point in support. Look, have a look at the crowds in the lower divisions. It isn't as though we've got thousands and thousands of people and fans going to watch it. Because soon as, the revenue to start with that they'll lose, the Broncos, it is enormous. As I keep saying to you, I always thought that to get promoted, to do well and stay in Super League was all around the fact how many games you win and how many games you lose. But it's not like that.
No, it's been a very difficult season for London. But as you rightly say, IMG and the game says we need a big team in London. That's the basis on which we can grow. We go on about this week after week, and nobody from IMG seems to come up with the goods and tell us what on earth is going on. Let's hope that will change before the end of the season, but I doubt it. I somehow doubt it.
Well, so do I. And I'm sure that David Hughes realises that that's it. Is he going to get the support from all the other clubs? I'm not right sure. Who knows? But the one thing is that the Catalans were beaten. Now, the chairman, Bernard Gauche, publicly in the French press have said it was the worst performance ever from his side. Now, if that's not saying, well, the reason why they lost was not because the London was better than them, but they didn't come up to scratch. And that's another problem that we have, because there are certain clubs in the UK who don't even want Catalan Dragons in Super League.
I know, and that's been one of the great success stories since 2006 when they came in as the Catalan Dragons. They were in from the start as Paris Saint-Germain, as we all know. Another one of the great success stories, Steve, over Super League is the Leeds Rhinos. Leeds are now battling to get into the playoffs yet again, beaten by Salford. They look like a team going nowhere just now. And ironic that the former Headingley hero Callum Watkins led Salford to victory. He got the Man of the Match award. He's now being tipped, by the way, for a Leeds comeback after that performance. They're allegedly looking at bringing Callum Watkins back and Ryan Hall. He's also returning to Headingley in 2025 for a last hurrah. You've got to scratch your head, Steve-O, and say, well, what on earth is happening at Leeds? They brought in some great players, key men from Salford to improve their squad. Salford on a shoestring budget seem to be going places. Paul Rowley working miracles again. Leeds allegedly want him too. Brad Arthur's not inspired the Rhinos' end-of-season push for the playoffs yet. His verdict on their performance, far too many errors, sin bins and penalties. These are troubling times for a club like Leeds.
Well, yes, it is. And of course, it has to be troubled times because of the fact that they're not getting it right, both on and off the field of play. With the greatest respect, bringing back players who have already, should we say, done their best at Leeds, to bring them back, that sounds to me as though you're desperate. And when you get desperate, it gets worse.
Well, the usual suspects, Leeds amongst them, of course, but St Helens and Wigan back to winning ways. Those two won't be far off, will they? Saints, easy and big winners at Hull. Wigan shocked by Huddersfield initially, but Jay Field made a timely return and inspired a second-half comeback. Bevan French is coming back soon as well. I know Jay Field didn't play in this midweek match against Lee, but they are a different side without French and Field. I just wonder how long also this injury, long-term injury to Jack Wellesby will be at St Helens. He's allegedly out for 8 to 9 weeks. And Johnny Lomax has been suspended. They've got a catalogue of injuries and problems at St Helens as well.
Yeah, it's. I think we sort of touched on that a couple of weeks ago in regards to the fact. Look, we know St Helens has had a lot of injuries, but so have some of the other clubs. But you've got to admire the way that Wigan are bringing. Look, some of these players, even the regular fans would say, "Oh, well, where's this guy come from?" But I tell you what, he's playing well. And it's all about the development. We also mentioned the fact that St. Helens have got a very, very good junior development. It's well organised, but they've hit a lot of problems. And I say, to lose one of your best players, and let's face it, Welsby is probably the best player on the St. Helens side, and to lose him, it's going to make them difficult, because I just cannot see anyone getting anywhere near Wigan because of their development, the ability to bring players through. They're not frightened to throw someone out there and just say, right, we know you've only played 3 or 4 games in first grade, etc., and so forth. But look, the coach has got so much confidence that he's pushing them out there, and they're performing. I honestly, I can't see anybody, and maybe I thought for a while Warrington perhaps would be their biggest threat, and I still think that will be the case when it comes to the playoffs. But, boy, you won't get big odds on Wigan.
No, you won't. That is true. But the great thing about it is, we've got so many teams now making a play for the playoffs. Is this the best final third of the season we've ever had, with so many teams in contention, do you think?
Yes, I do. And it's great to see that they're pushing the best team in the league at the moment. And I'll tell everybody that show me somewhere where you don't think that Wigan will win the competition. We thought Warrington would be the one. St. Helens been hit with injuries. Maybe Hull Kingston Rovers. They've been building for the last 2 or 3 years. And it would be wonderful. It would be great, to see. And they are developing. They went to Wembley, etc., and so forth. So it's been spread out. But when it comes down to the crunch, it's going to take a great side to beat Wigan.
It is, but it's there's a lot of water, Stevo, to run under the bridge before we get to Old Trafford in October. Let's just wait and see. Another big talking point, Stevo, the World Club Challenge. It could be played in Australia next year. Now, Rodri Jones, the Rugby League's commercial managing director, has said that the World Club Challenge will definitely take place in 2025, but the big question is where. It was said to be confirmed as a fixture played in the UK exclusively after Wigan sold out the game against Penrith last year, but it's not yet been signed off for 2025. Here's the problem. The World Club Challenge is Saturday, February the 22nd. The Las Vegas weekend, which involves both Wigan and Warrington, is in Las Vegas 7 days later. So, Wigan and Warrington, if they win the grand final, Wigan or Warrington, they face the prospect of playing games on 3 different continents on 3 consecutive weekends. Do you think the NRL will accept that? Do you think the NRL would say, OK, let's go. First of all, we'll play on home soil. Then we'll go the other side of the world. And then they'll go back to home soil via the United States. I can't see it. I can't see that happening. I can't.
Madness. I think that's a word. Absolute madness. Look, I know that they're fit players, but it's crazy. I don't know where this idea is coming from.
Well, Wigan say they've sold over 4,300 tickets already for the game against Warrington in Las Vegas. It's 7 months away. Chris Radlinski, the chief executive, has said he's been blown away by the number of people. And they are saying, a lot of people in Wigan saying they can't not go. They're aiming for 10,000 to go across with them. Chris said it's part of the plan to help grow rugby league. He and Carl Fitzpatrick at Warrington love the sport. He said they need help from Warrington, Super League and every club to help them achieve their aim. The media and the fans as well. We all have got a role to play here. But when you think that one of them, if they win the grand final, has got to play in the UK, in Australia and in America, and then come back and restart their season, reboot their Super League season. You're right. The word is madness. It's nonsense. Surely.
Well, let's put it this way. Why don't we all say we've got to help spread the gospel in the United States of America when we're panicking to try to survive in the UK?
I know it's a conundrum for the people who run the game. Yeah, it
How
is.
on earth can we? Are you trying to tell me, Eddie, that our game of rugby league in the UK is so well run, is so well organised that we're making money, that we can do this, that, and the other, and that we can then go to another country, go to America, because that's where the big money will be made. We tried to do that in Canada. Do you honestly believe that we can secure an organised sort of competition in America within the next 10 years? Now, I know what a lot of the Australian clubs, they want to try to do that with the New Zealand help, etc., and so forth. But we do not know when the International Federation will make the decision. They say they're going to have a tour. They say they're going to have a World Cup, this, that, and the other. The French cancelled it. And yet here we are, we're spending all our time, and we can't even organise who's going to come up and who's going to go down in our own competition. But they have made that decision, and yet the other clubs are saying we all should get together and make sure that this trip to Las Vegas is a huge success.
Well, the one thing we can say, and I'm trying to get a positive spin before we disappear for another week. The one thing we can say is that the 2026 World Cup plans have been finalised, which will be music to your ears. Australia will host the 10-team tournament. Papua New Guinea will also do a few as well. Dates will be announced in due course, but it's believed to be October, November 2026, almost certainly. Now, look, Australia, New Zealand, England, Lebanon, Tonga, Fiji, and Papua New Guinea, they're already qualified. The Cook Islands, Jamaica, South Africa, France, Serbia, and Ukraine will aim for the 3 remaining spots. And listen to this. Australia's bid, they say, has been helped by their ambitious plans for Las Vegas next year. So there you go. There you go. There is a positive spin on the Las Vegas trip.
Best of luck.
Is that it?
That's all I have to say. Simple as that.
Yeah, but the World Cup, the World Cup has been confirmed. 2026, Australia and Papua New Guinea.
I think that's fantastic. Yes. So why don't we put a lot of effort into sorting out our game in this country, so that perhaps we can take on the Australians and all the other countries.
I wonder how many people will agree with you. I wonder how many people will react to what you've said on the podcast this week. It sounds like common sense to me, but I haven't got much common sense.
Yeah,
if I'm honest.
But Eddie, you're my mate.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Look, I'm not one of these people that just lives in the past. I'm not that type of person. I want our game to flourish. I want it to go great. I want it to build up. I'd love to have 15,000, 20,000 every single game. But we don't seem to be able to come out with a campaign whereby we can save our game of rugby league.
Look, obviously you're in a bad mood this week. Are you going to brush up next week?
Listen, Eddie, I'm not in a bad mood. I'm in the mood to try to save the greatest game of all. Do you think that when the Australian clubs took it to Las Vegas, do you honestly think that they made any profit?
I don't know. They got 40,000 through the turnstiles, allegedly.
I don't think they made one single dollar profit.
But you've got to speculate to accumulate, Stevo.
I understand that as well. But there's no point in speculating when you've got trouble on your own doorstep. Let's fix that first, and then we'll show the greatest game of all to the rest of the world. But let's get our own game sorted out in this country.
And with that final message, we will leave it for this week. Stevo, you've always had an opinion. People can't take that away from you for the past 30-odd years. And you have been vociferous with that this week. You've made your point. Let's just see if we get any reaction to all that we've been talking about on this week's podcast. What do you think? What do you think?
I think my laugh says it all.
All right, well, let's hope we have a few laughs next week on Eddie and Steve on the podcast. Always good to talk. Always good to talk to Mr. Controversy. You're always there or thereabouts. Good lad. See you in a week's time.
Bye, top man.